The massive doors of the Galactic Harmony Council chamber opened with a deep rumbling sound. Ambassador Li Minho stepped through, his black suit perfectly pressed and his face calm. Behind him walked Park Suban, a woman in her 30s, wearing the dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Kim Juan followed last, carrying a briefcase filled with cultural documents and trade proposals. The chamber was enormous. The ceiling stretched so high that Minho had to tilt his head back to see the top. 12 different seating areas surrounded a central speaking platform, each designed for a different alien species. Some seats were filled with water for the aquatic Nexari, others glowed with heat lamps for the cold-blooded Zephyrians. The air itself was carefully controlled to accommodate everyone. Minho walked to the center platform. His footsteps echoed in the quiet chamber. Around him, dozens of alien eyes watched his every move. Some species had eyes like humans. Others had compound eyes like insects. A few had no visible eyes at all. Sensing the world in ways humans could barely understand, Council Speaker Vorthok rose from the largest seating area. He belonged to the hegemony, the oldest and most powerful species in the council. His body was tall and thin, covered in smooth gray skin. 4 arms extended from his torso, and his head was twice the size of a human head. The council recognizes the human delegation, Vorthok said. His voice was deep and carried easily through the chamber. Ambassador Li Minho of the species known as humanity seeks an audience regarding membership in our organization. Minho bowed slightly. Honored Speaker, members of the council, I thank you for this opportunity. Humanity comes before you with respect and hope for our future together. A sound like laughter came from the Quillian section. The bird-like aliens ruffled their colorful feathers and clicked their beaks. One of them spoke in a high, musical voice. How charming. The young species has learned basic politeness. More sounds of amusement rippled through the chamber. Minho kept his expression neutral. In the gallery above, Park Suban made a small note on her tablet. Kim Gyuan simply watched and listened. Vorthok raised one of his 4 hands for silence. The human request for membership has been reviewed by the appropriate committees. Before we proceed, the Council wishes to understand humanity's level of development and readiness for galactic society. A crystalline delegate stood up. Her body looked like living diamond, reflecting light in all directions. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes. Tell us, human, how long has your species been capable of interstellar travel? 200 years, Minho replied honestly. The chamber filled with what could only be described as condescending chuckles. A Nexari delegate, swimming in his water-filled tank, spoke through a translation device. 2 centuries. How adorable. We have been traveling between stars for over 10,000 years. And your technology? Asked a Thoraxian representative, his insect-like mandibles clicking. Is it entirely of your own creation, or did you receive assistance from more advanced species? Minho felt a subtle insult, but maintained his diplomatic tone. Humanity developed our technology independently. We are proud of our achievements, though we recognize we have much to learn from the esteemed members of this council. Park Suban shifted slightly in her seat. She had been Earth's military liaison for 5 years and had seen many negotiations. It felt different. The aliens were not just asking questions, they were testing humanity's patience. Vorthok gestured to a floating display that appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed star charts and data about human space. The Council has reviewed humanity's territorial claims. Your species controls approximately 47 star systems. This is quite small compared to other civilizations. We believe in careful expansion, Minho said. Quality over quantity. Or perhaps, suggested a Zephyrian delegate, your species simply lacks the capability for proper colonization. Your ships are remarkably slow by galactic standards. Kim Ji-won made her own notes. Its cultural attach She was documenting every interaction for later analysis. The pattern was becoming clear. Every question was designed to highlight human limitations. A new voice joined the conversation. This came from the ethereal section, where energy beings lived in specially designed containment fields. We have observed human behavior in your home system. Your species appears to have significant internal conflicts. How can we trust a species that cannot maintain peace among its own kind? Minho took a careful breath before answering. Humanity has had conflicts, yes, but we have also learned from them. We have united as a species in our journey to the stars. Our diversity of thought and experience makes us stronger. Diversity, repeated Vorthok, as if the word was amusing. Yes, we have noted that humanity consists of many different subspecies with varying physical characteristics. Most advanced civilizations have moved beyond such primitive biological variations. Insult was clear, but Minho's expression never changed. We consider our diversity one of our greatest strengths. Choi Daeho stepped forward from the human delegation area. As trade representative, he had prepared extensive economic proposals. If I may, honored council members, I would like to present humanity's potential contributions to galactic commerce. Vorthok nodded, though his gestures seemed more like granting permission to a child than acknowledging an equal. Daeho activated his presentation device. Charts and graphs appeared showing human industrial capacity, resource extraction capabilities, and manufacturing output. Humanity produces high-quality materials and finished goods. We have developed efficient mining techniques and can offer competitive prices for rare elements. Quillian Delegate preened her feathers dismissively. How quaint. Atemans have learned to dig holes in the ground and make simple tools. Our manufacturing processes are quite advanced, Daeho said, politely. We use automated systems and quality control methods that ensure consistent output. Automated systems, mused a crystalline representative. Do you mean you have discovered artificial intelligence? We have developed sophisticated computer systems. Yes, spin. The chamber filled with what sounded like alien laughter. Nexari spoke from his tank. They think their primitive computers are artificial intelligence. How charming. To it all, Minho stood quietly on the central platform. His hands were clasped behind his back, his posture straight but relaxed. To any observer, he appeared to be the picture of diplomatic patience. Finally, Vorthok called for order. The council has heard the human presentation. We will now discuss humanity's application. What followed was 40 minutes of aliens talking about humans as if they were not present. They debated humanity's readiness for civilization. A.T. questioned whether humans were emotionally mature enough for galactic society. They wondered if humanity needed guidance and supervision before being granted any real authority. The ethereal delegates suggested that humanity should be given probationary status with appropriate oversight. The Thoraxians proposed a development period of several centuries before reconsidering full membership. When the discussion finally ended, Vorthok turned back to Minho. The council has reached a decision regarding humanity's application for membership. Minho waited. Humanity will be granted provisional observer status. You may attend council sessions and observe our proceedings. However, you will not have voting rights or the ability to propose legislation. This status will be reviewed in 50 years to determine if humanity has sufficiently advanced to merit further consideration. The message was clear. Humanity was being told to sit in the corner and watch while the real civilizations conducted business. Minho bowed again. The human delegation thanks the council for their consideration. We accept the observer status and look forward to learning from the wisdom of the established members. As the session ended and aliens began filing out of the chamber, Park Suben noticed something. Ambassador Minho's diplomatic smile had never wavered, but his eyes had changed. They were still polite, still professional, but there was something new there. Something calculating. She had seen that look before, during her military service. It was the look of someone gathering intelligence, while, appearing completely harmless, the three humans left the chamber together, maintaining perfect diplomatic composure until the massive doors closed behind them. 3 months had passed since humanity received observer status in the Galactic Harmony Council. The human delegation had attended every session, sitting quietly in their assigned section while the alien species conducted their business. Ambassador Lee Minho maintained his diplomatic smile through every meeting, even as the treatment of humanity grew worse each day. Yang Hiren sat in the Science Observer section, reviewing her notes from the morning session. As Earth's leading stellar engineer, she had come to the council expecting to contribute to discussions about advanced technology. Instead, Shanae had spent the last 3 months listening to aliens dismiss human achievements as primitive curiosities. Today's session focused on stellar engineering projects. The crystalline delegates were presenting their plan to harvest energy from a dying star system. Their technology was impressive, using massive collectors to channel stellar radiation into usable power. Hiren knew humanity had developed similar systems, but with significant improvements in efficiency and safety. She raised her hand to request permission to speak. Council Speaker Vorthok noticed her gesture and made a sound that might have been a sigh. The human observer wishes to contribute something, Vorthok announced to the chamber. Several alien delegates made sounds of amusement. Hiren stood up. Honored council members, I have studied your stellar collection proposal. Human engineers have developed modifications that could increase energy output by 30% while reducing the risk of stellar destabilization. The crystalline project leader, a being named Courteous, flickered with what appeared to be indignation. The human suggests she understands stellar engineering better than a civilization that has practiced it for millennia. I am not suggesting superiority, Hiren replied carefully. I am offering to share improvements that might benefit all council species. The chamber erupted in what could only be described as condescending laughter. A Nexari delegate spoke from his water tank. How adorable. The primitive species thinks it can teach advanced civilizations about manipulating stars. A doc raised a hand for quiet. The council appreciates the human's enthusiasm, but perhaps it would be better for your species to focus on learning from the established members rather than attempting to contribute ideas beyond your current understanding. Hiren felt her cheeks flush with anger, but she sat down without another word. In the human observer section, Zhang Wuziak watched the exchange with interest. As military observer, he had spent his career analyzing enemy behavior and tactics. The council's treatment of humanity was following a clear pattern. The session continued with discussions about territorial expansion and resource allocation. The Zephyrian delegates proposed claiming 3 uninhabited star systems for mining operations. The Thoraxians supported the proposal, noting that these systems contained valuable, rare metals needed for advanced technology. What the aliens did not mention was that 2 of those systems were less than 5 light-years from human space. Wusiak made careful notes about which species supported the expansion and which ones remained silent. Information like this will be valuable to Earth Command. When the session ended, the human delegation gathered in their assigned quarters. The council had provided them with a small suite of rooms in the diplomatic section of the station. Accommodations were adequate, but clearly designed to remind humanity of their junior status. Oh, Zhuan spread several data tablets across the table in the main room. As intelligence officer, she had been collecting information about every council species for the past 3 months. Her official title was cultural liaison, but her real job was understanding potential threats and opportunities. A pattern is getting clearer, she said to the others. They are not just dismissing us, okay? They are actively planning to limit our expansion. Minho poured himself a cup of coffee from the small food preparation area. Earth beverages were not available on the station, but they had brought their own supplies. "What did you learn today?" "Said Cephrean expansion proposal is just the beginning," Sion replied. "I have been monitoring their private communications. They are planning to establish what they call a buffer zone around human space." "A buffer zone," repeated Park Subin. "That sounds like containment." "It is containment," confirmed Sion. "They want to prevent humanity from expanding beyond our current 47 systems. The excuse will be protecting us from dangerous influences while we continue to develop under their guidance." Hiren looked up from her own notes. "How long do they think this development period should last?" "Based on the discussions I have overheard, at least 500 years, maybe longer." The room fell silent. 500 years of being treated like children who needed supervision. 500 years of having their expansion controlled by alien species who considered humanity barely worthy of notice. 2 days later, the council held a special session to discuss emerging species integration policies. The human delegation attended, knowing they were the primary subject of discussion, even though no one would say so directly. Vorthok opened the session with a speech about the council's responsibility to guide newer civilizations. "The galaxy is a dangerous place," he said. "Species that expand too quickly often face challenges they are not prepared to handle. It is our duty as advanced civilizations to provide appropriate guidance." Quillian delegate, her colorful feathers bright under the chamber lights, spoke next. "Some emerging species show promise but lack the wisdom that comes with age. They need time to mature before being granted full independence." "Independence must be earned," added a Thraxian representative. "It cannot simply be given to species that have not proven their capability to handle responsibility." The ethereal delegates contributed their own thoughts through their translation devices. "We propose the establishment of formal guidance protocols for emerging species. This would include oversight of territorial expansion, technology development, and military capabilities." Usiak felt his jaw tighten. Okay. They were talking about controlling every aspect of human development. Okay. This was not guidance. It was domination disguised as benevolence. The discussion continued for hours. Alien species debated the best methods for guiding emerging civilizations. They talked about installing monitoring stations in human systems to ensure proper development. They suggested limiting human military growth to prevent dangerous militarization. The most insulting proposal came from the Nexari. Their representative suggested assigning cultural advisors to human governments. These advisors would help humanity make appropriate decisions about their future development. Of course, this would be voluntary, the Nexari delegate said, with what sounded like smugness. Emerging species would be free to reject our guidance, but those who choose to develop without proper oversight might find themselves excluded from galactic commerce and cooperation. The threat was clear: accept alien control or face economic isolation. Throughout the entire discussion, not one alien delegate asked for human input. They debated humanity's future as if humans were not present in the chamber. Minho sat in the observer section, his diplomatic expression never changing, but his eyes growing colder with each passing hour. When the session finally ended, Vorthok announced that the proposals would be put to a formal vote in 1 week. The council believes that proper guidance protocols will benefit all emerging species, ensuring their safe and appropriate development. As the aliens filed out of the chamber, chattering among themselves about their wise and benevolent plans, the human delegation remained in their seats. They waited until the chamber was empty before speaking. "They are going to vote to establish formal control over humanity," Sion said quietly. "And they expect us to be grateful for it," added Hiren. Minho stood up slowly. His diplomatic mask was still in place, but there was something different about his posture, something that suggested his patience was not unlimited. "Send a coded message to Earth Command," he said to Subin. "Tell them the situation has evolved. We need to accelerate our timeline. What timeline? Asked Wusuk. Minho's smile was still perfectly diplomatic, but his eyes held a coldness that none of them had seen before, the one where we stop being polite. Outside the chamber, alien delegates continued their conversations about the wisdom of guiding primitive humanity. None of them noticed a human delegation's departure. None of them considered that humanity might have plans of their own. They had made a fundamental mistake. They had confused politeness with weakness and patience with submission. Soon, they would learn the difference. The council chamber had never been more crowded. Representatives from all 12 member species filled their designated areas, with additional observers packed into the gallery sections. Today was the formal vote on the Emerging Species Guidance Initiative, though everyone knew it was really about controlling humanity. Ambassador Lee Minho entered the chamber with his usual calm dignity. Park Subin and Kim Ji-won followed close behind, while Yang Hairen, Jang Woo-seok, and Oh-seon took their places in the observer gallery. To any watching alien, the humans appeared exactly as they had for the past 3 months: polite, patient, and respectfully subordinate. Council Speaker Vorthok called the session to order with a ceremonial chime that echoed through the vast space. Today, the Council votes on measures that will ensure the proper development and guidance of emerging civilizations throughout our galaxy. The first hour consisted of speeches praising the wisdom and benevolence of the proposal. Crystalline delegates spoke about their duty to share knowledge with lesser species. Nexari representatives emphasized the importance of preventing emerging civilizations from making dangerous mistakes. Saraxian speakers highlighted the benefits of structured development under experienced guidance. Each speech was filled with self-congratulatory language about protecting primitive species from their own limitations. The aliens spoke as if they were discussing the care of children rather than the fate of an entire civilization. A Quellian delegate named Featherwind stood to address the chamber. Her voice carried the musical quality typical of her species, but her words were condescending. The Council's wisdom in establishing these protocols cannot be questioned. We have seen what happens when primitive species are allowed to develop without proper oversight. They create conflicts, waste resources, and threaten the stability of civilized space. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the alien sections. Several delegates nodded their various types of heads in approval. The species, known as humanity, shows promise, Featherwind continued, but they clearly need guidance. Their technology is crude, their expansion uncontrolled, and their military capabilities concerning for such a young civilization. Proposed oversight measures will help them develop in a safe and appropriate manner. More sounds of approval filled the chamber. An ethereal delegate added their own thoughts through their translation system. The humans seem willing to learn, which is encouraging. With proper guidance over the next few centuries, they may eventually become worthy members of galactic society. Warthog gestured toward the human observer section. Before we proceed to the vote, we will allow the human representative to address the council regarding these measures. This was a surprise. The agenda had not included time for human input. Min rose smoothly and walked to the central speaking platform, his expression calm and diplomatic. Honored speaker, esteemed members of the council, he began in his practiced, diplomatic tone. Humanity is grateful for the council's consideration of our development and future place in galactic civilization. The aliens settled back in their seats, expecting the usual polite acceptance they had come to expect from the human diplomat. Minho continued. We understand that the council believes these guidance measures are in our best interest. We appreciate the concern shown for our species' welfare and development. Vorthok nodded approvingly. This was proceeding exactly as expected. Then Nixari, Counselor Zelthrin, interrupted with a dismissive wave of one of his tentacles. Surely the human understands. that this discussion is beyond their comprehension. Perhaps they should simply accept the Council's wisdom and express gratitude for our patience with their primitive concerns. The chamber erupted in what could only be described as amused laughter. Lian delegates throughout the room made sounds of agreement and amusement at Zelthron's casual dismissal. Vorthex's forearms gestured in what appeared to be approval. Indeed, Counselor Zelthron speaks wisely. Humans should focus on learning to properly maintain the systems we will provide them, rather than attempting to understand the complex decisions of true civilization. The laughter grew louder. Several Thoraxian delegates clicked their mandibles in what passed for applause among their species. Quellian representatives preened their feathers with obvious satisfaction in the observer gallery. Park Subin noticed the change immediately. It was subtle, almost invisible, but she had worked with Minho for years. The slight shift in his shoulders, the way his hands moved from clasped behind his back to hanging loose at his sides, the microscopic tightening around his eyes. His diplomatic smile remained perfectly in place, too, but something fundamental had shifted. Kim Ji-won caught the almost imperceptible hand signal Minho made, a simple gesture that looked like adjusting his sleeve, but she recognized it from their briefings. It was a code they had established months ago. Oh said and saw the signal too and quietly activated her secure communicator. She spoke in a whisper, so low that only the device's sensitive microphone could pick up her words. Earth Command, this is Intelligence Officer. Oh, authorization code Omega Red 7. Diplomatic status, change imminent. Recommend fleet alert status immediately. The message was transmitted in a burst of compressed data that would reach Earth in hours rather than the usual days required for standard communications. Back on the speaking platform, Minho stood perfectly still as the alien laughter continued. Around him, Zelthron was still speaking, his tentacles waving dismissively. The humans are like children who have learned to use simple tools, the Nexari counselor continued. They think this makes them ready to join adult conversation, but they cannot understand the complexities of real civilization. We must be patient with their limitations. More laughter filled the chamber. Crystalline delegate added her own comment. Perhaps we should assign them educational materials more appropriate to their level of development. Something simple they can actually understand. The mockery continued for several more minutes. Aliens throughout the chamber shared jokes about human limitations and primitive nature. They spoke as if Minho was not standing right in front of them, as if humanity was not represented in the room at all. Finally, Vorthok called for quiet. The council has been most patient with human concerns. Oh, we must proceed with important business. He turned to Minho with an expression that might have been kindly condescension. Human representative, the council thanks you for your attendance. You may return to your observation area while we conduct the formal vote on measures that are, as Counselor Zelthron noted, beyond your species' current understanding. The dismissal was complete and absolute. Humanity was being told to sit down and be quiet while the adults made decisions about their future. Minho's diplomatic smile never wavered. But when he spoke, his voice had changed. The carefully modulated diplomatic tone was gone, replaced by something much more direct. See, he said quietly, you have made your position quite clear. Something in his tone made the chamber fall silent. Even the most arrogant delegates sensed that something had shifted. Minho reached into his jacket and pulled out his personal communicator. Instead of the discreet diplomatic device he usually used, this was clearly military hardware. When he activated it, the signal was strong enough to reach every human device in the chamber. Earth Command, this is Ambassador Lee Minho, he said in clear, undiplomatic language. Authorization code, Crimson 77. Execute protocol. Honest conversation. The alien delegates looked confused. The words meant nothing to them. The tone was completely different from anything they had heard from the human. Representative Yang Hiren stood up in the observer gallery. Her movement was fluid and confident, no longer the careful posture of someone seeking permission to exist in the same room as her betters. Shang Wuxiak rose as well, and suddenly his bearing was unmistakably military. The quiet, respectful observer was gone, replaced by someone who looked like he could command armies. Oh, Xian activated additional equipment that had been hidden in her diplomatic case. Lights began blinking as systems came online throughout the chamber. Kim Ji-wan opened her briefcase and pulled out what was clearly not cultural documentation. Data, tablets, communication devices, and recording equipment filled the container. Park. Suban stepped forward to stand beside Minho on the speaking platform. Her diplomatic aide demeanor had vanished, replaced by the bearing of someone accustomed to making life and death decisions. Minho looked around the chamber at the confused and increasingly concerned alien faces. His diplomatic mask was completely gone now, replaced by something much more dangerous. Complete honesty. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, said in a voice that carried easily through the suddenly quiet chamber, I believe there have been some fundamental misunderstandings about humanity's capabilities and intentions. The age of human politeness was officially over. The council chamber remained unnaturally quiet. Ambassador Li Minho stood on the central platform, no longer the polite diplomat who had endured months of condescension. His posture was straight and confident, his eyes sharp with intelligence that the aliens had somehow failed to notice before Council Speaker Vorthok was the first to break the silence. Its human representative. What is the meaning of this disruption? Return to your designated area immediately. Minho ignored the command completely. Instead, he activated his communicator again. Heard the command. Confirm receipt of authorization. All diplomatic protocols are hereby suspended. Initiate full disclosure sequence. Okay. A new voice responded through the device, clear enough for everyone in the chamber to hear. Roger. Ambassador Li. Full disclosure authorized. Alasas are green. For revelation. Good hunting. The alien delegates began murmuring among themselves. This was not the behavior they expected from the submissive human species. Several Thoraxian representatives clicked their mandibles nervously. Yang Kiran stepped down from the observer gallery and walked to join Minho on the speaking platform. Her movement was confident and purposeful, completely different from the hesitant scientist who had been dismissed weeks earlier. For instance, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Our so-called primitive stellar engineering that you found so amusing. Would you like to see what humanity has actually been building while you have been talking? She activated a device from her pocket. The chamber's main display system came to life, showing images that made every alien in the room fall silent. The first image showed a massive structure surrounding a yellow star. It was not complete, but clearly a Dyson swarm in the process of construction. Thousands of collection platforms orbited the star in perfect formation, harvesting energy on a scale that dwarfed anything the council species had achieved. This is the solar engineering project, Hiren explained calmly, completed 3 months ago while we have been attending your sessions. Energy output, 47 times greater than your largest stellar collection array. The display shifted to show another star system. This one contained structures that were clearly industrial in nature, but on a scale that seemed impossible. Factory complexes that stretched across entire asteroid belts, shipyards that could construct vessels the size of moons. The Proxima Industrial Complex, Hiren continued, operational for 2 years. Current production capacity, approximately 12 times the combined industrial output of all council species. A crystalline delegate flickered with what appeared to be shock. That is impossible. Our surveys showed primitive human installations in that system. Your surveys showed what we wanted them to show, Hiren replied with a slight smile. Holographic projections are remarkably effective when properly deployed. Zhang Wuxiek had joined them on the platform. The quiet military observer was gone, replaced by someone who radiated command authority. And since you have been so concerned about our military readiness, he said, perhaps you would like to know about our defensive preparations. The display changed again. This time it showed space around the council station itself. What had appeared to be empty space was suddenly filled with sleek, Kangula ships that materialized as their stealth systems deactivated. Fleet Group 7, Wuxiak announced. 43 vessels currently surrounding this station. They have been in position for 6 weeks. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Exari delegates thrashed their tentacles in agitation. Quellian representatives spread their feathers in alarm displays. Vortex 4 arms gestured frantically. This is an act of war. You have brought weapons into council space without authorization, actually. Wuxiak replied calmly. We requested permission to bring defensive escorts 3 months ago. Your staff approved the request without reading it carefully. The paperwork is quite detailed about our fleet composition. The display shifted to show other locations throughout council space. In system after system, human vessels appeared as their stealth systems shut down. Some were disguised as cargo ships. Others had been hidden in asteroid fields or nebulae. All were clearly military vessels, far more advanced than anything the council had seen before. Fleet groups 1 through 15, Wuxiak continued, positioned throughout council territory. Total complement, 612 vessels. Equipped with technology your species have not yet encountered. Sit-Yan had activated additional equipment from her case. Information began flowing across secondary displays throughout the chamber. We have also been monitoring your communications, she announced, tracking your fleet movements, analyzing your political structures, recording your private conversations about humanity's future. The displays showed intercepted messages between council species, private communications about containing humanity, secret agreements about dividing human space among council members, plans for installing puppet governments in human systems. You really think, Xian asked, that a species capable of interstellar travel could not figure out basic cryptography? Your communication codes were broken within hours of our arrival. The Zephyrian delegate spoke with a shaking voice. Have been spying on us. We have been gathering intelligence on potential threats. Xian corrected. Standard procedure when entering unknown political situations. Choi Daeho had joined the group on the platform. The trade representative who had been dismissed. As Primitive now commanded attention, simply by his presence. As for our so-called limited industrial capacity, he said, perhaps you would like to know about our actual economic position. New data filled the displays, trade routes, resource flows, manufacturing statistics. The information painted a picture that stunned the watching aliens. For the past 8 months, Daeho explained, humanity has been supplying approximately 60% of the rare materials used in council space. The mining operations you approved as primitive human enterprises have been producing strategic resources at rates that exceed your combined output. Thoraxian delegates' mandibles clicked in distress. Our supply chains depend on those materials. Daeho agreed. They do. We have been very careful to maintain reliable deliveries while establishing our position in your economy. The implications were becoming clear to the alien delegates. The primitive species they had been patronizing controlled significant portions of their resource base. Kim Ji-1 stepped forward with her own revelations. Cultural attach. She had been dismissed as dealing with unimportant human customs. Now she revealed the true scope of her activities. We have also been conducting outreach to other species in council space, she announced. Many of your member civilizations are not entirely happy with the current power structure. The displays showed communication logs with various alien governments. Some were council members expressing private doubts about current policies. Others were non-member species interested in alternatives to council dominance. 17 council member species have expressed interest in alternative arrangements, Kim continued. 43 non-member civilizations have requested direct diplomatic contact with humanity. K. Your monopoly on galactic civilization is not as secure as you believed. Park Soo-ban had remained silent through the revelations, but now she spoke with the authority of someone accustomed to strategic planning. For 3 months, you have treated humanity as children who needed guidance. You spoke about us as if we were not present. You planned our future as if we had no say in it. She gestured to the displays showing human capabilities throughout the galaxy. What you failed to understand is that humanity was gathering information, learning about your capabilities, your weaknesses, your dependencies. We were preparing for the moment when diplomacy would no longer be sufficient. Warthog finally found his voice. What do you want? Minho smiled, but it was not his diplomatic smile. This expression was sharp and predatory. We want to renegotiate the terms of our relationship, he said simply. All of them. The age of council supremacy was ending, and every alien in the chamber knew it. The council chamber had fallen into complete silence. Every alien delegate stared at the displays showing humanity's true capabilities. The primitive species they had patronized for months had just revealed technology, military power, and economic influence that exceeded their own. Council Speaker Vorthex's forearms trembled slightly as he processed the information. This is impossible. Our intelligence services would have detected such massive construction projects. Oh, Sid now stepped forward with a tablet in her hand. Your intelligence services have been compromised for the past year. We have been feeding them carefully selected information while conducting our real activities elsewhere. She activated the tablet, and new images appeared on the main displays. These showed Council intelligence operatives meeting with humans they believed were providing secret information. What the aliens did not know was that every piece of intelligence had been deliberately crafted to misdirect their attention. Agent Thornscale of Zephyrian Intelligence believed he was recruiting human sources, O explained. In reality, he was being fed false data about our capabilities while we studied his methods in contacts. A Zephyrian delegate's scales changed color in what appeared to be extreme distress. Our entire intelligence network has been exposed, mapped, analyzed, and in some cases recruited, O confirmed. We now have detailed knowledge of your intelligence capabilities across all Council species. Nexari, Counselor Southrin, who had delivered the final insult that triggered humanity's revelation, thrashed his tentacles in agitation. You cannot threaten the Council. We have treaties, agreements, established law. Ambassador Lee Min-ho turned to face Zalthran directly. His diplomatic mask was completely gone, replaced by cold calculation. Counselor Zalthran, you spoke about humans being like children who needed adult supervision. You said we could not understand complex decisions. You laughed at our primitive concerns. Minho's voice was calm, but carried an undertone that made several aliens shift nervously in their seats. Let me help you understand our position. Humanity withdraws from consideration for Council membership. We are not interested in joining an organization that views other species as pets to be managed. Wartheg's voice carried desperation. You cannot simply withdraw. There are procedures, protocols that must be followed. Park Soo-ban stepped forward. All Council observation posts and planned guidance installations in human space will be removed within 72 hours. Any vessels that remain after that deadline will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. The threat was clear and absolute. Several Thraxian delegates clicked their mandibles in what sounded like fear. This is an act of war, declared a crystalline representative, her diamond-like body flickering with agitation. Jiang Wuzik smiled coldly. No, this is an act of independence. War would involve different tactics and would have already begun. Yang Haoren activated another display, showing additional human installations throughout the galaxy. Speaking of different tactics, perhaps you should know about our stellar engineering weapons research. The new images showed stars with massive arrays pointed toward inhabited systems. The technology appeared to be capable of focusing stellar energy into directed beams across interstellar distances. We have been working on weaponizing stellar output, Yang continued matter-of-factly. These installations can deliver the equivalent of a star's total energy output to any target within 50 light years. Just thought you should know, in the interest of full disclosure. The chamber erupted in panicked sounds from multiple species. The implication was clear. Humanity could destroy entire star systems from a distance. A Quillian delegate named Featherwind, who had earlier praised the wisdom of controlling humanity, spoke with a trembling voice. Surely you would not use such weapons against civilian populations. That depends, Minho replied, on whether those populations are represented by governments that choose to respect humanity's sovereignty or governments that continue to believe they have the right to control our development. Kim Juan stepped forward with her own contribution to the negotiation. We will be establishing our own alliance network with species who prefer mutual respect to paternal condescension. Several council member species have already expressed private interest in alternative arrangements. She activated a list of names that appeared on the displays. The list included representatives from 8 different council species, along with detailed records of their communications expressing dissatisfaction with current council policies. These species have indicated willingness to establish direct diplomatic and trade relationships with humanity outside of council oversight. Others have requested protection from council economic and military pressure. The political implications were staggering. If humanity could offer an alternative to council membership, the entire galactic power structure would collapse. Choi Daeho delivered the economic ultimatum. All human trade agreements with council species are hereby suspended pending renegotiation. This includes the rare material supplies that your industries depend on. A Nexari delegate spoke with obvious panic. Our manufacturing systems cannot function without those materials. You would cripple our entire economy. We would prefer to continue profitable trade relationships, Daeho replied calmly, but only with partners who treat humanity as equals, rather than subjects to be managed. Warthog made one final attempt to assert council authority. The council has maintained galactic peace for over 1,000 years. You cannot simply destroy the established order. We are not destroying anything. Minho corrected. We are offering you a choice. You can adapt to dealing with humanity as equals, or you can explain to your populations why their standard of living is about to drop significantly when human technology, resources, and protection disappear from your societies. Sion added the intelligence component. We also have detailed records of council corruption, legal territorial seizures, and suppression of emerging species over the past century. This information could be shared with affected populations if necessary. The threat of exposure hung in the air like a weapon. A long silence filled the chamber as the alien delegates processed their new reality. The species they had considered primitive children had outmaneuvered them completely. Humanity held superior technology, controlled critical resources, commanded hidden fleets, and possessed information that could destabilize their governments. Finally, a crystalline delegate spoke hesitantly. What are your terms for continued cooperation? Minho's smile was sharp and predatory. Equal representation in any galactic organization we choose to join. Removal of all restrictions on human expansion and development. Recognition of human sovereignty over our territory and internal affairs. And, if we refuse?" asked Selthrin, though his voice lacked its earlier arrogance. "Then you will discover what humans are truly capable of when we stop being polite," Park Subin replied. Yang Hiren added her own warning. "Our stellar engineering projects include more than just energy collection. We have been developing methods for stellar manipulation that could make star systems uninhabitable if necessary." The implications were clear. Humanity possessed the ability to destroy entire civilizations. Warthak's voice was barely above a whisper. "How long do we have to consider your terms?" 72 hours, Minho replied. "It's the same deadline for removing your installations from human space." As the human delegation prepared to leave the chamber, Kim Ki-1 delivered one final message. "We will be broadcasting our offer of alternative alliance to all species in this galaxy. Any civilization interested in mutual cooperation rather than hierarchical control is welcome to contact us directly." The humans walked toward the chamber, exit with confident, measured steps. No longer the polite observers seeking approval. They moved like conquerors who had chosen to offer terms, rather than simply take what they wanted. "Oh," Xian paused at the exit and spoke into her communicator, her voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber. "Earth Command, this is Intelligence Officer. Oh, mission accomplished. The galaxy now knows what humans are like when we stop being polite." The chamber doors closed behind the human delegation, leaving the alien council to contemplate their new reality. The age of casual supremacy was over. The universe had just learned that humanity's politeness had never been weakness. It had been a choice, and that choice had just ended.